Good afternoon, everybody. So, I just want to say, let's for just this one video, let's take off our Christian hat and let's put on a tinfoil hat. I have something I want to share with you guys, and I just hope that you guys will stick to the end, because at the end of this video, I'm going to share something with you guys, a statement that was made in the movie I want to talk about. And I was shocked when I heard this statement. And I'll explain to you guys at the end why I was so shocked. I don't believe in coincidences, first of all. I want to say that. So those of you who've been following my channel for a while know I always say that. There's no such thing as a coincidence. So, and for those of you who aren't following my channel, kindly subscribe. Hit the subscribe button and follow me along on this journey of videos and whatever I'm led to share with you guys. So I want to talk about that movie, Leave the World Behind. I'm pretty sure by now most of you have heard, or some of you have heard about it, Leave the World Behind. It's a movie that's produced by the Obamas and other people produced it. So I'm not going to spoil it for you guys. I've watched some videos on this, some people talking about it, but I'm not going to spoil it for you guys. I'm not going to talk about the whole movie. I'm just going to hit on a couple of bullet points, things that stuck out to me that really, made me think deeper than most people normally do. I always think deep, but deeper. And one thing I want to say from the beginning is that a lot of people say, "Oh, that's conspiracy theory. That's conspiracy theory." And one thing we've learned, especially in the last 3 or 4 years, is that conspiracy theories are only conspiracies for 6 months or a year, and then they turn out to be factual and true. So this movie, it has what we call predictive programming. So if you don't know what predictive programming is, basically it's them telling you ahead of time what they plan on doing before they go on and do it. Like this, you can't turn around and blame them and say it's because of you and but they're telling you ahead of time, and then they can say, "See, we warned you guys about this." And who is them? I say is because it's basically them telling you ahead of time. Who is them? Most often is the very people who are behind the events themselves, with many other actors in the shadows. This movie is about a major cyber attack against every infrastructure in the United States. Through this movie, we see how people react when the world they know is turned upside down or no longer exists. And I saw some of the stuff that was going on, especially in the character of Julia Roberts, and I was just left in awe. But I just want to say that I truly believe that this movie depicts or represents beautifully 90%, if not more, of the people of society, and how people will react when the things that are happening in this movie happen. Okay, do I believe what they are potentially telling us in this movie that's going to happen? Yes, I do believe in predictive programming, and I do believe that in their own little ways, they are telling us what they're going to do and what will happen. And why do I believe this? Well, I'm going to give you one reason, okay? We know the health crisis that we just had for the last 3 or 4 years, okay? I think the last 3 years. The health crisis that we went through. Well, in case some of you didn't know, and you can research this yourself, it's all over the internet, and it's old. In case some of you didn't know, on I believe it was October 19th, 2019, they held in New York City. And who is they? They were global elites, politicians, scientists, mathematicians, experts, experts in the field. And what was the event called? The event was called Event 201. And they held a round table, and in it they discussed how will society, how will the world, how would governments react if there was a global pandemic. That was in October 2019. And what happened just a couple of months later? Coincidence? I just told you how I feel about coincidence. And if you don't believe me, go Google Event 201, and you'll see. And then, for the last year and a half or two, Klaus Schwab, if you don't know who Klaus Schwab is, he's the head of the WEF, the World Economic Forum. If you don't know who he is, Go look it up. I'm pretty sure you've heard of him by now. He's the one that comes up with the mantra, you own nothing and be happy, or build back better. That's him. Yes, that's where Biden and all these world politicians, leaders have gotten this quote from, build back better, from the World Economic Forum. Him and Bill Gates have been telling us for almost 2 years now that a major cyber attack is coming. They didn't say that it could be coming. They say it's coming. And Klaus Schwab himself said, this attack will make COVID look like just another inconvenience. Okay? Predictive programming. Okay? They're telling us what is going to happen. Okay? And if you don't believe it, also there's a movie that came out, I believe right before COVID or right after COVID. It was called Contagion. Go check out the movie. The movie is about an American who goes to China and, contracts a virus, and it all starts the way everything played along. And also, predictive programming. I'm going to share a video with you guys. You guys can watch it. There was a show, I believe in 2001, The Lone Gunman. Okay, it was a spin-off from the X-Files, and it was The Lone Gunman. And in their March 2001 episode, it was that pilot episode, as a matter of fact, the whole episode was about a plane striking the World Trade Center. That was in March 2001. What happened in September of that year? Okay, so we got that. So another thing to go with this cyber attack is a thing. They did the event 2001 before COVID, right? In 2021, they did another roundtable. Well, the experts. And the roundtable is called Cyber Polygon. Go look it up. You can Google it. Cyber Polygon. And basically what it was is they were discussing how the world would react if there was a cyber pandemic. And this event was led by none other than the World Economic Forum. So go look that up. So now I want to read really quickly not even half an article, maybe like 2 paragraphs of an article that I looked up online talking about cyber attacks. Okay, so it's from the site called Tech Radar Pro. Okay, and this article was from just a couple of days ago, and it says following a suspected recent Iranian cyber attack against a U.S. water treatment facility, government officials are now alleging that the Chinese military has been targeting a number of water and power installations across the country. Keep everything I'm reading to you in mind, because it's going to go along with what I have to say at the end here. So transportation systems are among the apparent targets, with the assaults supposedly being carried out to develop a broader attack playbook that could be deployed if war were to break out between the U.S. and China. Crippling key infrastructures. Key words here. Crippling key infrastructure. After an outbreak of hostilities would slow logistics, create potential hysteria within the population, and ultimately destabilize the nation. I'm going to read those 3 things again. Crippling key infrastructures, create potential hysteria within the population, and ultimately destabilize the nation. I read these again because I'm going to read some events, some things that were said in the movie, and these are one of the things. The attacks are being carried out by groups affiliated with the People's Liberation Army in China, and the groups have infiltrated 20 to 30 sites across the country, according to an unnamed official who works for the Washington Post. Among the targets were water infrastructure in Hawaii, the operator of the Texas power grid, a port on the West Coast, and at least 1 oil and gas pipeline. While attacks against these sites are serious, apparently no critical systems were breached yet. Okay, so now I have like 10 bullet points that I want to share with you guys from this movie. As I watched this movie, I couldn't help but be in awe and just pause it, and I wrote these things down. So one of the things that they say in this movie is, one of the first things that they say is, a conspiracy theory of some shadow organization running the world is not true. That's what they tell you in the movie. Now, just look at who's behind the movie, who produced it, okay? The Obamas and other people. So they're trying to tell you, oh, this is not true. Those conspiracies are not true. And the other quote, another thing that they say here, if you're not paranoid by now, it's too late. Not Julia Roberts, but one of the characters said to the other one, if you're not paranoid by now, it's too late. And the shirts on the kids, there were two teenage kids that Julia Roberts, her son and daughter had, and they had these shirts on. And I was looking at them, I was like, wait a minute. What are they trying to tell us through those shirts? The girl's shirt had the word NASA on it really big. So I was like, okay, NASA. But then when I saw the young boy's shirt, it had this ugly looking, like the demonic looking face. And the word obey. Really big white letters that said obey on it. And then another thing is Julia Roberts' character starts to panic when she realizes what's happening. She starts asking, do we have enough water? Do we have enough food and batteries and generator, things to purify water? So she started going on naming all the things. Do we have? Again, it's about being prepared, guys. Then she says, he knew that guy at the store was loading up his truck with water, fuel, survival food, and gear. At one point, she went to the store to get food, and she saw, it was Kevin Bacon's character, he was loading up in his pickup truck, like all these essentials, water, fuel, and many other survival gear. And she saw that, and she was like, I just looked at him like nonchalantly, like, oh, well, aren't people like that today when they see people who are preparing or getting themselves ready for whatever may come, whether it be a hurricane or whether it be a cyber attack? You need to get yourself prepared with at least enough to survive for whatever amount of time you think you need. So another quote I have on here is, there's this another thing that I'm sharing is there's this deafening noise, a loud noise that no matter what you're doing, it just brings you to your knees, and even if you cover your ears, it still screeches so loud that it just goes right through you. And at one point, Danny, who's Kevin Bacon's character, he mentions that the Cuba radiation created a loud sound, and some people even lost their teeth. He mentions this in the movie. And the reason he mentioned this is because Julia Roberts' son was losing his teeth. They were falling out because of this noise. So I did a quick research on what Kevin Bacon was saying, the Cuba radiation. Now, I know I heard about it years ago. So for this video, I did some research, and I'm going to share real quick what I found. In a BBC article from 2016, they call it the Havana Syndrome. Some of you may have heard of it. And the mysteries of the microwaves. And it says, doctors, scientists, intelligence agents, and government officials have all been trying to find out what causes Havana Syndrome, a mysterious illness that has struck American diplomats and spies. Some call it an act of war. Others wonder if it's some new secret of surveillance. It often starts with a sound, one that people struggle to describe, a buzzing, a grinding metal. Piercing squeals was the best they could manage. One woman described a low hum, intense pressure in her skull. Another felt a pulse of pain. Those who did not hear a sound felt heat or pressure, which some of these people in the movie did. But for those who heard the sound, covering their ears made no difference. Some of the people who experienced the syndrome were left with dizziness and fatigue for months. This is reality. This is what happened in Havana Syndrome in Cuba to politicians. I believe it was two politicians that were stationed in Cuba. And another bullet point that I want to share from this movie, I just have a couple more, is there was a drone flying around, and it was dropping leaflets. And on these leaflets, kind of like what Israel does to Gaza when they drop the leaflets warning them that they're going to bomb them. This drone was flying around, had all these red leaflets it was dropping. And on the leaflet was a message in Arabic that basically said, death to America. And then the other thing I want to share is there was one point where they were leaving on the road. It was Julia Roberts and her family, and they were leaving. They were trying to get back to the city, and they got to a certain point in the road where it was complete traffic jam. Julia Roberts got out to go see. What I found funny and ironic was that as I was looking, all these cars were all Teslas. EVs, electric vehicles. Think twice, guys. They were all Teslas, and they were all disabled. And that she got out of her car and she walked to see if there were people. There was nobody in these cars. So she was like bewildered, like, what's going on? And she noticed that these were electric vehicles and that they had X amount of time that they can travel. She turns around and she sees more cars like driving full speed down the road. So her and her husband, they move out of her way, and these cars all coming. They're self-driving cars. They're all smashing into each other, because everything that happened with the cyber attack, and now these cars with the electrical systems went haywire. Another thing is, before the collapse, this guy George, who's one of the main characters in the movie. I don't call it a movie. It's not a movie. I tell people it's really not a movie. They just tell you what they're gonna do. One of his business associates has high intel within the government. George's business associate is connected with people high up in the government, and he said that this guy had told him at one point, like right before this happened, the guy said to him, "I'm going away. It's just my annual meeting with the rest of the cabal that runs the world." So this guy left, and at one point, I think the day before, he called George, his client called him and said, "Listen, take all my money, take everything out, just do this." And he was just basically like just taking everything. And then he said to him, "I wish you well." So again, it's a movie, but we see a lot of reality in the things that they're showing us in the movies. And then at one point, who was it? It might have been Kevin Bacon's character says to them, "There is no going back to normal." No, the girl, actually, Ruth, says it. There is no going back to normal. And this is one thing that I've been saying since COVID, and I've been telling people, there is no going back to normal, okay? And then this girl, Ruth, who happens to be a black girl, I mentioned this for a reason. She says to her father, now keep in mind who's producing this movie. She says to her father, "Trust should not be given out easily to anyone, especially to white people." Just think about who was producing this movie and make a comment like that. And I was telling a coworker today, I said, can you imagine if the roles were reversed? And this was a white girl telling her father, trust can't be given out easily, especially to black people. Can you imagine the outcry that they would have against this movie today? Anyway, so that's what they said. And I believe some people are calling out Obama for this being in the movie. And then Amanda, who's Julia Roberts, says that the guy Danny, who is the prepper, will know what to do. This is when her son got sick from that noise, that radiation, that he was losing his teeth and he was bleeding. So she said Danny will know. So they go to see Danny, and this is what Danny says. Okay, it must be war because there's been enough chatter for a while. So Ethan Hawke, who's Clay in the movie, he says, "What do you mean by chatter?" And he says, "You got to read past the page 1 of the news, my friend. Something is afoot here. We've made a lot of enemies around the world. Maybe all this means is that a few of them have teamed up together." When I heard that comment right away, the thing that came to mind for me was BRICS, the BRICS nations. So if you don't know what the BRICS nation is, go look it up. I don't want to make this video too long. And then Ruth says, at one point, the animals are going crazy throughout this movie. I guess because of the radiation, with everything that's going on in the world, and everything's all out of whack. So the animals are just going nuts. And Ruth says the animals are trying to warn us. They know something. They know that something is coming. It's from God. It's like it's from God that storms are coming. This is what she says. She's saying that the animals are warning us. And then the two last things that I want to share about this movie here is that George, he tells Clay, who is Ethan Hawke's character, tells him of how the enemy could bring down a nation through a 3-stage process that can tumble a government from within. And what's that three-stage process? Remember, I read to you before from that article when they talk about the 3 stages, which is crippling the infrastructure, creating potential hysteria within the population, and ultimately destabilizing a nation. That's what that article said. And in the movie, this is what George tells Clay. And when they're in the car sitting, and he tells him, because now George has insight because his friend is the one that's connected to people high in the political realm and people high in the military. And this is what George tells him. He said, these are the 3-stage process. Is this 1, isolation, bringing down communication and transportation, as we see that's what happened in this movie. The second one is synchronized chaos, People will start turning on each other, just as we see in this movie. And the third one is a coup d'etat, which leads to civil war, and it initially leads to collapse of that country. So the thing about it is, at one point they talk about money, okay? And Kevin Bacon's character, Danny, says that cash may not mean anything once the government falls. So the money you have in your bank will mean nothing if a collapse like this comes. So I just want to end with this. I told you guys in the beginning that I was going to share with you guys what really shook me a little bit, was that in one part of the movie, okay, this guy George, the character who's the businessman, he's really rich, he's the businessman, and he mentioned something to Julia Roberts' character. And I watched this movie last night. He mentioned something to Julia Roberts' character, and he said, I looked at the market and I knew something was coming. I knew something was wrong. This guy's looking at the stock market. He's looking at the currencies. He's looking at everything because that's what he does for a living. And he says, I knew something was coming. I was shocked. And why was I shocked? Because I watched this movie last night, but about 2 hours before that, my wife and I are watching the news. You know, this we usually do sometimes. We're watching the news, and they're talking about the stock market. And yesterday, the stock market hit I don't know if it's an all-time high, but it hit the high for the last couple of years. It broke 37,000 points over here in the United States, and I think today's even higher. And we're watching this, and they're talking about the stock market, how it had such a great day. And I said to my wife, it doesn't make sense. I said, something's going to happen. And that's what this guy said in the movie. He says, I look at the market and I knew something was coming. I said to my wife, it doesn't make sense. Something's going to happen. Something's not right. The stock market looks so great. Silver, gold, everything, all these things are doing great. But it doesn't match with what I'm seeing out in the streets. It doesn't match with the soup kitchen that my church leads, with the ministry we have. There's so many people in need. It doesn't match with the prices that we're paying at the grocery stores. It doesn't match with the needs. It doesn't match with the high rents and the mortgages. And it doesn't match. The market, what the market says and what the government's saying, that everything's great, doesn't match with what you're physically seeing. So when I saw that, I was like, wow, just before all this happened, the guy said, I looked at the market and I knew something was coming. So anyway, that's my little tinfoil theory for today. We'll get back to our Christian videos. My next video will be definitely a Christian video. But I just wanted to share this with you guys out there, and share it with your friends, your family, whoever, and just tell them to go watch the movie. But what I suggest is that when you watch that movie, don't just watch it as, I'm watching a movie. Think behind it. What are they trying to say? Because you might find things that I didn't see. Okay, and I did see some other things that I didn't share because I didn't want to make this video too long. But there were other things there that makes you wonder, makes you think, what are they trying to tell us? What are they trying to tell us? God bless you, my friends, and have a nice day.